The Elder Scrolls is a series of action role-playing open-world fantasy video games primarily developed by Bethesda Game Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. The series is known for their elaborate and richly detailed open worlds and its focus on free-form gameplay. Morrowind, Oblivion and Skyrim all won Game of the Year awards from multiple outlets. Development history. Before The Elder Scrolls, prior to working on the Elder Scrolls series, Bethesda had worked predominantly with sports and action games. In the 6 years from its founding to Arena's 1994 release, Bethesda had released 10 games, 6 of them sports games, with such titles as Hockey League Simulator, NCAA Basketball, Road to the Final Four, and Wayne Gretzky Hockey, and the remaining 4 adaptations from other media, primarily the Terminator series. Bethesda's course changed abruptly when it began its first action role-playing venture. Designer Ted Peterson recalls, "I remember talking to the guys at Certec who were doing Wizardry 7, Crusaders of the Dark Savant at the time, and them literally laughing at us for thinking we could do it." Ted Peterson worked alongside Vijay Lakshman as one of the initial designers of what was then simply Arena, a medieval-style gladiator game. Arena. Peterson and Lakshman were joined by Julian Le Fay who, according to Peterson, really spearheaded the initial development of the series. Peterson, Lakshman and Le Fay were long-time aficionados of pencil and paper role-playing games, which greatly influenced the creation of the world of Tarmal. They were also fans of Looking Glass Studios' Ultima Underworld series, their main inspiration for Arena. Initially, Arena was not to be a role-playing game at all. The player, and a team of his fighters, would travel about a world fighting other teams in their arenas until the player became Grand Champion in the world's capital, the Imperial City. Along the way, side quests of a more role-playing nature could be completed. As the process of development progressed, however, the tournaments became less important and the side quests more. RPG elements were added to the game, as it expanded to include cities outside the arenas, and dungeons beyond the cities. Eventually it was decided to drop the idea of tournaments altogether, and focus on quests and dungeons, making the game a full-blown RPG. Although the team had dropped all arena combat from the game, all the material had already been printed up with the title, so the game went to market as The Elder Scrolls, Arena. Bethesda founder Christopher Weaver came up with the name of The Elder Scrolls, and the words eventually came to mean Tarmal's mystical tomes of knowledge that told of its past, present, and future. The game's initial voiceover was changed in response, beginning, "It has been foretold in The Elder Scrolls." Bethesda missed their Christmas 1993 deadline. The game was released in the first quarter of 1994, really serious for a small developer-publisher like Bethesda Softworks. The packaging included a scantily clad female warrior, which further contributed to distributor concern, leading to an initial distribution of only 20,000 units. Having missed the Christmas sales season, the development team was concerned that we had screwed the company. Nevertheless, sales continued to grow, month after month, as news of the game was passed by word of mouth. Despite some initial bugginess, and the formidable demands the game made on players' machines, it became a cult hit. Evaluations of the game varied from modest to wild. Still, the game maintained traction with its audience. Game historian Matt Barton concluded that, the game set a new standard for this type of CRPG, and demonstrated just how much room was left for innovation. Daggerfall. Work on The Elder Scrolls II, Daggerfall began immediately after Arena's release in March 1994. Ted Peterson was assigned the role of lead game designer. Daggerfall's plot was less cliché copyright-y than Arena's and involved a complex series of adventures leading to multiple resolutions. With Daggerfall, Arena's experience point-based system was replaced with one rewarding the player for actually role-playing their character. Daggerfall came equipped with an improved character generation engine, one that included a GURPS-influenced class creation system, offering players the chance to create their own classes, and assign their own skills. Daggerfall was developed with an XEngine engine, one of the first truly 3D engines. Daggerfall realized a game world twice the size of Great Britain, filled with 15,000 towns and a population of 750,000. It was influenced by analog games and literature Julian Lafay or Ted Peterson happened to be playing or reading at the time, such as Dumas' The Man in the Iron Mask and Vampire, The Masquerade. It was released on August 31, 1996. Like Arena, Daggerfall's initial release suffered from some bugs, leaving consumers disgruntled. These early anomalies were fixed in later versions. This experience led to a more prudent release schedule for future games. Battlespire and Redguard. Following the release of Daggerfall, work began on 3 separate projects all at once: Battlespire, Redguard, and Morrowind. Battlespire, originally titled Dungeon of Daggerfall, Battlespire, was the first of the 3 to be released, on November 30, 1997. Originally designed as an expansion pack for Daggerfall, it was repackaged as a stand-alone game. Battlespire focused on dungeon romping and offered multiplayer gaming, player versus player deathmatch, the only series title to do so before the release of The Elder Scrolls Online in 2014. Redguard was the second of the 3 titles to be released, on October 31, 1998. It was a pure action-adventure game inspired by Tomb Raider, Prince of Persia, and the Ultima series. Redguard did not offer the player the chance to create their own character. Instead, players would play the prefabricated Cyrus the Redguard. Both games did poorly with Bethesda's public. Players used to the vast open spaces of Daggerfall did not take well to the reduced worlds of Redguard and Battlespire. Based upon its customers' clear desire for massive RPG worlds, Bethesda redoubled its efforts to build the next major chapter. Morrowind. The third title in the Elder Scrolls series was first conceived during the development of Daggerfall. Initially designed to encompass the whole province of Morrowind and allow the player to join all 5 Dharma Great Houses, it was decided that the scope of the game was too much for the technology available at the time. At publication it covered just the Isle of Ardenfell and allowed the player to only join 3 of the Great Houses. The XNGINE was scrapped and replaced with numerical design limited Scamabrio, a direct 3D-powered engine, with T&L capacity, 32-bit textures and skeletal animation. It was decided that the game world would be populated using the methods the team had developed in Redguard. With the game objects crafted by hand, rather than generated using the random algorithmic methods. The project took close to 100 man-years to create. Bethesda tripled their staff and spent the first year developing the Elder Scrolls construction set. This allowed the game staff to easily balance the game and to modify it in small increments rather than large. Ted Peterson, who had left following the release of Daggerfall, returned to work as an author of in-game material, and as a general consultant on the lore-based aspects of the work. The PC version of Morrowind had gone gold by April 23, 2002, and was released on May 1 in North America, with the XBOX release set at June 7. On January 3, Bethesda announced that game publisher Ubisoft would take control of Morrowind's European distribution, in addition to those of 8 other Bethesda games. The Elder Scrolls III Tribunal expansion pack went gold on November 1 and was released, with little fanfare, on November 6. Tribunal puts the player in the self-contained, walled city of Mournhold, which can be teleported to from Morrowind's land mass. Development on the game began immediately after Morrowind shipped, giving the developers a mere 5-month development cycle to release the game. The prior existence of the construction set, however, meant that the team already had the tools in place to add content and features very quickly. Interface improvements, and specifically an overhaul of Morrowind's journal system, were among the key goals. Morrowind's second expansion, The Elder Scrolls III, Blood Moon, went gold by May 23, and was released on June 6. It had been worked on since the release of Tribunal. In the expansion the player travels to the frozen island of Solstheim and is asked to investigate the uneasiness of the soldiers stationed there. Oblivion. Work on The Elder Scrolls IV, Oblivion began in 2002, immediately after Morrowind's publication. Oblivion was developed by Bethesda Softworks, and the initial Xbox 360 and personal computer releases were co-published by Bethesda and Take-Two Interactive subsidiary 2K Games. Oblivion was released in March 21, 2006. Developers working on Oblivion focused on providing a tighter storyline, more developed characters and to make information in the game world more accessible to players. Oblivion features improved AI, improved physics, and improved graphics. Bethesda developed and implemented procedural content creation tools in the creation of Oblivion's terrain, leading to landscapes that are more complex and realistic than those of past titles, but had less of a drain on Bethesda's staff. Skyrim. In August 2010, Todd Howard revealed Bethesda were currently working on a game that had been in development since the release of Oblivion, and that progress was very far along. While the game was conceptualized after Oblivion's release, main development was restricted until after Fallout 3 was released. In November, a journalist from Eurogamer Denmark reported overhearing a developer on a plane talking about the project. A new The Elder Scrolls game, although Bethesda did not comment on the report. At the Spike Video Game Awards in December, Todd Howard appeared on stage to unveil a teaser trailer and announce the title of the game. The Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim was released on November 11, 2011. Online. On May 3, 2012, The Elder Scrolls Online was revealed. The Elder Scrolls Online was released for Windows and OS X on April 4, 2014, with the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 versions initially slated to follow in June 2014 but later delayed to late 2014 or early 2015. Gameplay. The Elder Scrolls games can be safely categorized as role-playing games, although they do include elements taken from action and adventure games. In Arena, as in many RPGs, players advance by killing monsters until a preset value is met, whereupon they level up. However, in Daggerfall, Morrowind, and Oblivion the series took a skill-based approach to character advancement. Players develop their characters' skills by applying them, and only level up when a certain set of skills have been developed. Skyrim took a new approach, where the more a skill is leveled, the more it helps to level the character. This shifted the focus away from character creation and more onto character development. The flexibility of the game's engines has facilitated the release of game extensions through the Elder Scrolls construction set. The Elder Scrolls main series of games emphasizes different aspects of the gaming experience than most computer role-playing games. A brief article by Joystick in early November 2006 compared BioWare's creations to Bethesda's by noting a difference in emphasis. Bethesda's creations focused on aesthetic presentation and open-ended adventuring. BioWare's on a combat system and modular architecture. This overarching aim has been noted by their designers as well. Bethesda has described their motivations in creating the first series game, Arena, as those of any good pen and paper RPG, creating an environment in which the player could be what the player wants and do what the player wants. Daggerfall's manual begins with a sort of design manifesto, declaring the developer's intention to create a book with blank pages, and a game designed to encourage exploration and reward curiosity. Choices, in the form of paths taken by the player, to do good, to chase after evil, are left open to the player, just like in real life. This design trend continued with Morrowind, following the hiatus of similarly epic games in the interim, though Joystick's previously noted insistence on graphics came again to the fore. During the development of Morrowind, Bethesda tripled its staff, so as to perfectly color its newly handmade world. In their own words, "We knew we had to exceed the visual polish of the other games on the market, and we made it our goal to put the Elder Scrolls back into the forefront of game innovation." Series Overview, Setting. The Elder Scrolls world can be described as one of high fantasy with influences from a multitude of cultures all over the globe. Like most works of high or epic fantasy, the Elder Scrolls games are typically serious in tone and epic in scope, dealing with themes of grand struggle against a supernatural or evil force. Many races exist in the world of the Elder Scrolls, some typical of high fantasy works, some atypical, and some subversions, magic and sorcery, mythical creatures, factions with their own political agendas, world medieval cities and strongholds, and plot elements driven by prophecies and legends. In accordance with many literary high fantasy works, the world of the Elder Scrolls is known for its attention to detail, including well-developed lore and backstory. This includes a vast amount of information such as names, dates, and places that constitute its history and the interconnected structure of its various societies, cultures, and religions. Lore including histories and legends are contained in thousands of readable in-game books that are scattered throughout the game world. The Elder Scrolls series is also notable for its significant mythology and pantheon. There are dozens of known deities, each with different names and interpretations in the lore and mythology of different races and ancestries, and many of them, notably the morally ambivalent Daedra, able to be interacted with by the player. The Elder Scrolls games take place on the fictional world of Nine, on the continent of Tamil, a large landmass divided into 9 provinces. The exceptions are the Elder Scrolls Legends, Battlespire, and parts of the Elder Scrolls IV, Oblivion, which take place between the realm of Oblivion and the mortal realm of Mundus. There are other continents besides Tamil on Nine, but there has yet to be an official game that takes place upon one of them. Tamil itself is divided into 9 provinces, each with its own native race. Those provinces are as follows: Cyrodiil, Morrowind, High Rock, the Somerset Isles, Hammerfell, Black Marsh, Skyrim, Vinwood, and Elsva. The native races of the provinces are as follows: Imperials in Cyrodiil, Dunmer in Morrowind, Bretons and Orsimer in High Rock, Altmer in the Somerset Isles, Reedguards in Hammerfell, Argonians in Black Marsh, Nords in Skyrim, Bosmer in Vinwood, and Khajiite in Elsva. There are 4 separate ruling powers on the continent: the Mede Empire, the recently independent Hammerfell, the neutral-aligned Black Marsh and the Old Mary Dominion. The Emperor of the Mede Empire resides in the capital province of Cyrodiil. The ruling dynasty throughout the Third Era consisted entirely of the descendants of Tiber Septim. His line, frequently called the Septim bloodline, ended at the conclusion of the Third Era, with the death of Martin Septim, the last living heir of Uriel Septim VII, during a failed invasion of Cyrodiil by the forces of Oblivion. Several years after the Oblivion crisis, a Colovian warlord named Titus Mede assumed the throne of the empire, reigning through at least the first 40 years of the Fourth Era. During the Fourth Era, the empire declines in power, leading to the secession of the provinces of Elsva, Black Marsh, Vinwood, and the Somerset Isles. The provinces of the Somerset Isles and Vinwood, home to the Altmer and Bosmer, respectively, create the Old Mary Dominion, an elven empire whose influence quickly eclipses the Old Empire, who faces another separatist movement in the province of Skyrim. Notably, there is no one compilation of all information pertaining to the Elder Scrolls world, and, within the games, historical references are often vague or even contradictory, as players are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about situations and events. The Elder Scrolls, the actual Elder Scrolls, in the language of the dragons, play a very limited role in the storyline of the series, serving only as framing plot device. The Elder Scrolls themselves are rarely referred to in-game, or even in the in-game literature. The Elder Scrolls IV, Oblivion marked the first actual appearance of the scrolls in the final quest of the Thieves' Guild questline. The scroll itself appears as an incomprehensible chart, containing luminous glyphs. Information about the Elder Scrolls is sparse, and often contradictory. They are thought to be relics from the Aedra. Attempting to read the scrolls also proves difficult as the scrolls are protected by several layers of magical safeguards. This includes the blinding light that emanates from the scroll's text. Another safeguard exists independent of the light that makes the writing on the scrolls indecipherable. However, there exists a sect of monks, the Order of the Ancestor Moths, who devote their lives to the reading and interpreting of the Elder Scrolls. Bypassing the scroll safeguards, however, takes a huge toll on the monks' vision. Senior members who read the scrolls wear blindfolds at all times when they are not divining the scroll's content, and retired moth priests are always completely blind. Attempting to read the Elder Scrolls without training always results in failure and immediate blindness. However, cosmically important individuals, or individuals that are the subject of prophecy, have been able to see the unencrypted writing on the Elder Scrolls without the associated rituals or resulting blindness. A book entitled Lost Histories of Tamil provides further insight on the Elder Scrolls, stating that when any event has actually occurred, it sets itself unchangeably into the scrolls, and no action, magical or otherwise, can alter this. In the Elder Scrolls v. Skyrim, the scrolls are described as fragments of creation, and play a vital role in the main questline. They are said to be very descriptive works of writing, and without vast knowledge of the arts, one may go insane trying to decipher them. The player is tasked with retrieving an Elder Scroll from an expansive Dharma ruin known as Black Reach, located underground. During gameplay, if the player tries to read the Elder Scroll, they will go temporarily blind. It is discovered that the Elder Scroll was used by the ancient Nords to battle Alduin, the ancient dragon prophesied to destroy the world, inadvertently sending him forward in time. The player character uses the scroll to travel back in time to gain the knowledge of how the Nords were able to combat Alduin. It is also described that the number of the scrolls is unknown not because of their immense quantity, but because the number itself is unknowable, as the scrolls do not exist in countable form. The actual number and placement of Elder Scrolls fluctuates constantly, as it is said that they technically exist and do not exist at the same time. This makes their predictions difficult to cite authoritatively because entire scrolls or entries can change or vanish as events transpire. This unpredictability has caused other ascetic groups, such as the Greybeards from Skyrim, to find the existence of the Elder Scrolls a blasphemy. In Dawnguard, Lord Harkon attempts to use the Elder Scrolls to blot out the sun so the vampires can overwhelm Tamil. Whether the player joins the vampires or the Dawnguard, they will find a moth priest to read the scrolls that are collected. Once collected, the moth priest reveals that he is blind, not having prepared himself properly in his hurry to read the first scroll. So he tells the player of a ritual allowing the player to read the scrolls. The ritual involves harvesting bark from a special canticle tree and using it to bring ancestor moths to a shaft of light and reading all 3 scrolls to find Auriel's bow. The moth priest Dikshan tells that ancestor moths can give a person the extra sense needed to truly read the scrolls. Related media: in 2009, science fiction author Gregory Keyes released The Elder Scrolls: The Infernal City, a novel set approximately 40 years after the Oblivion crisis. Lord of Souls was released in 2011 as Keyes' second novel in his The Elder Scrolls book series. On August 1, 2013, Bethesda revealed The Elder Scrolls Anthology for the PC, a compilation of all 5 of the Elder Scrolls games, including all of the expansions to Morrowind, Oblivion and Skyrim. Reception: in 2012, Complex ranked The Elder Scrolls at number 20 on the list of the best video game franchises. In 2013, The Elder Scrolls was voted as the greatest game series of the decade on GameSpot, beating out 64 other competitors. The Elder Scrolls reached a final round, beating the Grand Theft Auto series by a margin of 52.5% of the vote for The Elder Scrolls to 47.5% for Grand Theft Auto. Scrolls controversy: in August 2011, Bethesda Softworks contacted the developer of Minecraft, Mojang, claiming that the intended trademark of the title Scrolls for its new game breached Bethesda's trademark on The Elder Scrolls. On March 10, 2012, Marcus Persson tweeted that the two had come to an agreement over the use of the name. The agreement prohibits Mojang from using the title Scrolls in any future sequels of the game. Notes. References. External links: The Elder Scrolls official site, Wikia, The Elder Scrolls Wiki, unofficial Elder Scrolls pages.